Hello, my friends. My name is Sensei Alexey Kunin, and this is my life journey. Today, I would like to talk about the importance of weapons training in martial arts. Weapons should be important and integral part training in any form of martial arts, and it doesn't matter if it's karate or kung fu or jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu especially, because jiu-jitsu, it's a very applied martial art. It's designed for combat, so weapons training is extremely important. So we're gonna talk about, first, there's different types of weapons training. There is a traditional old-fashioned weapons that they practice in traditional martial arts, especially in karate. And those weapons training is important to understand the concept of old-fashioned training, the concept of movement, but all those old weapons that they would practice in Okinawa or in the old traditional karate, some of them are not really practical in the modern world. But the importance of training in those weapons, it's important. It's important to understand traditions. It's important to understand where they're coming from, how they were applied in a practical application, and how to use them. But in a more modern world, those weapons, you wouldn't be able to use it on the street. When it comes to jiu-jitsu, traditionally jiu-jitsu was always a samurai martial art, so there was always were involved many different types of weapons. There were firearms, ancient firearms, there were swords, and there was many other weapons. So jiu-jitsu was always used many different weapons in the battlefield. So it's not just a knife and a sword, but it was whatever weapons you can find when you're fighting in a battlefield. And even in the ancient Japan, they used ancient form of firearms. So we're gonna focus mostly right now on jiu-jitsu, because that's my expertise and knowledge when it comes to Japanese jiu-jitsu, but at the same time, I want everybody to understand the importance how to use and train in any form of weapons. So old-fashioned weapons, the reason people train them again is to understand how they work, to understand the traditions, the cultural aspect, but mostly it's more like a folklore. So they wouldn't be used on a combat in the street. The weapons that we use in jiu-jitsu right now in the modern world would be firearms, any type of firearms, definitely knives, definitely sticks, and swords, but swords again mostly for understanding the cultural traditional values. Because I don't think normal people wouldn't walk on the street with a sword. So, but sword is important to understand the very deep roots of jiu-jitsu, its philosophy and traditions. In my dojo, in KATABAMI Ju-Jitsu Dojo, I teach more realistic approach to jiu-jitsu. So we train with knives, we train with sticks. If we need to, we train with firearms. In more advanced classes, we incorporate an understanding how the weapons work. It's very important to understand that you cannot separate training weapons and separately applied hand-to-hand combat. Remember that any weapon, it's an extension of your body, extension of your hands, especially when it comes to swords, sword fighting. Swords are just extension of your hands and body. Same thing with a knife and stick. So my approach and philosophy to weapons training, it should be from the beginning a very important integral part of training in jiu-jitsu. So a student should understand that doing certain techniques, it's just extension by changing a little bit of method and angle, you can use the weapon. So a lot of techniques in jiu-jitsu would be very similar to using weapons by hand-to-hand combat or not, but using the same principles. Principles do not change. So weapons training is extremely important, especially in combat, especially in jiu-jitsu training. A good jiu-jitsu dojo should, from early stage of training, introduce the students to the concept of weapons, how to use weapons. Each weapon has strengths and weaknesses, so the students should be aware, at least be aware how to defend against those weapons. But then the philosophy is, if you know how to attack, you have to know how to defend. Or if you know how to defend, learning how to defend yourself against certain weapons, you can apply the principle how to attack with that weapon if you need to. So again, weapons training is very important in jiu-jitsu. In traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, weapons should be very important part of all complete training. It should be integral part, that everything should work together. So I would recommend, if you go to look for jiu-jitsu dojo, make sure that they offer weapons training. What kind of weapons? Are there practical applications to those weapons? Because there are some weapons that you would never use, but what's the point of training? Maybe just for philosophical traditional values. But again, weapons is very important, and you should use them with that weapons training in a daily practice. All my students always training with weapons. First, we understand the basic techniques, how they work, and then how to use the weapons, apply them, and see how you disarm or control your opponent using those weapons. If somebody attacks you with a knife or a stick, how to control the situation. A lot of things, if it's not firearms, a lot of things with weapon training is very mental as well. You have to understand the principles that somebody attacks you with a knife. The basic principle is you're always gonna get cut. It's not a Hollywood movie. Somebody will attack you with a knife. Doesn't matter how good you are in fighting, it doesn't matter, you're gonna get cut. So there are some basic rules in jiu-jitsu weapons training, that certain restrictions, certain things, you have to be mentally and physically ready. If somebody attacks you and you're bleeding from a cut or from a stab, what do you do next? How do you survive? So mental training just as important as physical skill training with the techniques. And it should be done in a qualified jiu-jitsu dojo with a very qualified jiu-jitsu sensei who understands how to work with weapons, who understands how to teach correctly, so the students will understand how to treat the weapon with respect. They should understand, and everybody should understand, that weapons is very serious. You use weapons, that means if you carry a weapon, that means sooner or later you're gonna have to use it. How to use it, how not to hurt yourself, how to be psychologically ready to use the weapon or to be able to defend yourself against somebody who's using the weapon. And so there is many important factors involved when it comes to training in a modern world with realistic weapons. Again, I really think that weapon training should be done from an early stage of jiu-jitsu training. Not later on when you're already a brown or black belt. It's a little bit too late. Well, it's never too late, but the sooner you start training with the weapons, the sooner you'll be more comfortable dealing and understanding how to apply the techniques to a weapon. And the more you will develop respect for the weapons. Because the more you're training with the weapons, the more you start respecting the weapons, respecting the use of it, the responsibility when it comes to if you're using a weapon. Because yes, it brings a lot of psychological, cultural, and moral responsibilities. Because somebody gonna get hurt, you have to be morally strong, spiritually strong to deal with any situation. So this is kind of a short, very short lecture when it comes to weapons use and weapons training. My name is Sensei Alexey Kunin, and this is my dojo, KATABAMI Jiu-Jitsu Dojo in Omaha, Nebraska. Please write me, let me know what you think. You want to share some stories or you have questions. I love to answer questions about Jiu-Jitsu, Jiu-Jitsu training, Jiu-Jitsu philosophy. I have been practicing and teaching traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu for over 45 years. And I've been to many countries teaching seminars for military and police, including weapons, including restoration therapy, healing therapy, Oriental healing, and Oriental medicine. I'm a former US Army veteran, so I have a lot of understanding and knowledge when it comes to combat applications, weapons, and Eastern philosophy. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.